The rain had been falling all evening in the crowded city streets. Neon lights reflected off the wet pavement, turning the marketplace into a glowing sea of colors. People rushed past each other, umbrellas bumping and footsteps echoing. In the middle of all the noise and movement walked a young woman named Lucy. Lucy wasn't rich. She worked long hours at a small convenience store near the spaceport district. Every day she watched travelers from dozens of planets come and go. Merchants, pilots, smugglers, and sometimes beings she couldn't even recognize. Living near the intergalactic port meant strange sights were normal. But tonight something unusual caught her attention. Near the entrance of a small food stall sat an old alien. He looked fragile and exhausted. His thin body was wrapped in worn gray robes that had clearly seen better centuries. His skin had a faint silver glow, and deep lines ran across his face like cracks in ancient stone. Most people passing by didn't even look at him. Some stared for a moment, then quickly walked away. The stall owner frowned at the alien. "Hey, if you're not buying anything, move along," the vendor snapped impatiently. The old alien slowly reached into his robe and pulled out a small pouch. When he opened it, only a few tiny metallic coins rolled into his palm. The vendor scoffed. "That barely buys water. Come back when you have real credits." The alien lowered his hands silently. His eyes, glowing faintly blue, looked tired, not angry, not desperate, just deeply weary. Lucy stopped walking. Something about the scene didn't feel right. She had seen beggars before, smugglers pretending to be poor, even scammers. But this alien didn't look like any of them. He looked lonely. Without thinking too much, Lucy stepped toward the food stall. "Excuse me," she said to the vendor. The man looked up. "Yeah." Lucy pulled a few credits from her pocket, almost all the money she had left for the week. "I'll pay for his meal." The vendor raised an eyebrow. "For him?" Lucy nodded. The vendor shrugged and started packing food into a container. Warm noodles, grilled meat, and bread from 3 different planets. It was far more food than the alien had asked for. Lucy took the package and walked over. "Here," she said gently, offering it. The old alien looked up at her slowly, clearly surprised. "You bought this for me?" he asked in a quiet, almost musical voice. Lucy smiled awkwardly. "Yeah. Everyone deserves to eat." For a moment, the alien simply stared at her as if trying to understand something very complicated. Then he accepted the food carefully. "Thank you, Lucy." Lucy blinked. "I didn't tell you my name." The alien gave a small mysterious smile. Some things are easy to see when one has lived long enough. Lucy laughed nervously. "Well, enjoy your dinner." She turned and began walking away toward the metro station, not realizing that the old alien was watching her very closely. Not with curiosity, with recognition. Hours passed. Lucy had just returned to her small apartment. It was a modest place on the 17th floor of an old building overlooking the spaceport. Ships came and went constantly, their engines rumbling like distant thunder. She kicked off her shoes and collapsed onto her couch. "Another long day," she muttered. Her stomach growled. She laughed quietly. "I guess buying that meal means noodles again tomorrow." Just as she reached for her phone, something strange happened. The entire room began to vibrate. At first Lucy thought it was a passing cargo ship, but the sound kept getting louder and louder. Then came a deep metallic roar from the sky. Lucy walked to the window and froze. Above the city, filling the night sky, were massive black starships. Not one, not two, but dozens. Each ship was enormous, shaped like floating fortresses with glowing golden symbols across their hulls. Their engines illuminated the clouds like artificial suns. Lucy's heart started pounding. These aren't trade ships. She had seen many spacecraft before, but these were different. These were imperial warships. Sirens began echoing across the city. Traffic stopped. People rushed outside to stare upward. Searchlights from the ships swept across buildings like giant eyes scanning the streets. Lucy stepped back from the window in shock. What is happening? Then suddenly, knock, knock, knock. A heavy knock echoed from her apartment door. Lucy's stomach dropped. Who would come this late? The knocking came again, louder this time. Knock, knock. Lucy slowly walked toward the door. Her mind raced with possibilities. Police? Military? Spaceport authorities? But when she opened the door, she nearly fainted. Standing in the hallway were 6 tall armored soldiers. Their armor was sleek black metal trimmed with gold light. Strange alien symbols glowed across their chest plates. Each soldier carried a weapon that looked powerful enough to destroy a building. Behind them stood a tall officer wearing a dark cape. Every one of them suddenly dropped to one knee. Lucy's eyes widened. The officer bowed his head respectfully. Then he spoke in a calm, commanding voice. "Lucy of Earth." She stared at them, completely confused. "Ygres." The officer looked up at her with deep respect. "Several hours ago you showed kindness to a starving old traveler." Lucy blinked. "You mean the alien at the food stall?" The soldiers exchanged looks. The officer nodded slowly. Lucy rubbed the back of her neck. "I mean, it wasn't a big deal. He was hungry." For a moment, the entire hallway was silent. Then the officer spoke words that made Lucy's heart nearly stop. "That old traveler." He paused. "Is His Eternal Majesty, the hidden emperor of the Galactic Imperium." Lucy's brain struggled to process the sentence. "What?" The officer continued calmly. "For centuries, the emperor has traveled the galaxy in disguise, searching for one thing." Lucy swallowed. "What thing?" The officer looked directly into her eyes. "A human with a pure heart." The soldiers lowered their heads again. "And tonight he finally found one." Lucy leaned against the doorframe, dizzy. "You're telling me?" She pointed toward the sky filled with warships. "All of that is here because I bought someone dinner?" The officer nodded. "Yes." Lucy whispered to herself. "Oh no." And far above the planet, aboard the largest golden warship in the fleet, the old alien who had eaten Lucy's meal sat upon a throne of stars, watching her building, smiling, because tomorrow, Lucy's life would never be normal again. Lucy stood frozen in the doorway of her small apartment while the armored soldiers remained kneeling in the hallway. The golden lights of their armor reflected off the walls, making the entire corridor glow like something out of a futuristic palace rather than an old apartment building. Her brain struggled to process what she had just heard. "The Emperor," Lucy said slowly. The tall officer lifted his head. His expression was serious but respectful. "Yes, Lucy. The traveler you helped tonight is the ruler of the Galactic Imperium." Lucy blinked several times, hoping this was some kind of strange dream. "You're joking, right?" None of them laughed. The officer calmly reached to his belt and tapped a small device. Instantly, a hologram appeared in the air between them. Lucy gasped. It showed the old alien sitting upon a massive throne inside a starship. Around him stood hundreds of powerful alien leaders, generals and advisors. Golden banners hung behind the throne displaying the same symbols Lucy had seen on the warships outside. The tired old alien she had helped now looked completely different. He wore a crown of glowing crystal. His silver skin radiated faint energy. And the way the entire room bowed before him made one thing very clear. He was not just important. He was the most powerful being in the galaxy. Lucy slowly sank onto the couch. "No way." The officer turned off the hologram. "The Emperor has ruled the Imperium for over 6,000 years, he explained. Thousands of worlds, millions of star systems, and countless civilizations answer to his command." Lucy rubbed her forehead. "And he was sitting outside a noodle stall?" "Yes." Lucy stared at him. "That makes absolutely no sense." The officer actually smiled a little. "It does if you understand the Emperor." Lucy crossed her arms. "Then explain it to me." The officer stepped inside the apartment while the soldiers remained outside. "For centuries the Emperor has traveled the galaxy in disguise," he said. "He visits different planets alone, pretending to be poor or weak. He does this to observe how people treat those who have nothing." Lucy frowned. "So it's like a test?" "Exactly." The officer continued. "In thousands of worlds, billions of people, almost everyone ignored him." Lucy looked down. "But you didn't." Lucy shrugged awkwardly. "He was hungry. Anyone would help." The officer shook his head. "No, Lucy. They wouldn't." Lucy thought about that. And unfortunately, he was probably right. People in the market had walked right past the old alien. Some had even laughed at him. Lucy felt a strange chill run through her. So what happens now? The officer looked at her with calm seriousness. Now the Emperor wishes to meet you. Lucy's eyes widened. Right now? Yes. She pointed toward the window. You mean on one of those giant warships? Yes. Lucy stood up quickly. Absolutely not. The officer looked surprised. You refuse? Lucy grabbed her jacket. I have work in the morning. The officer blinked. Lucy kept talking. And rent to pay. And a boss who already thinks I'm late too often. The officer stared at her as if she had just said something completely alien. You are worried about work? Lucy looked at him like he was the crazy one. Of course I am. I'm not going to space with strangers at midnight. The officer opened his mouth to respond. But suddenly a calm voice spoke from behind him. You may wish to reconsider. Lucy's heart skipped. She slowly looked toward the hallway. Standing there, leaning lightly on a silver staff, was the old alien from the market. Lucy jumped to her feet. You. The soldiers immediately stood and bowed deeply. Your Majesty, they said together. The old alien walked slowly into the apartment. But now that Lucy looked closer, he didn't seem weak anymore. His presence filled the room with quiet power. The air itself seemed to hum around him. Lucy crossed her arms nervously. You look healthier. The Emperor chuckled softly. The meal helped. Lucy scratched her head. So you're really the Emperor? He nodded. Yes. Lucy stared at him for a moment. Then she said something that made the officer nearly choke. You owe me 20 credits. The Emperor burst into laughter. Deep, genuine laughter that echoed through the small apartment. It has been a very long time since someone has spoken to me like that, he said. Lucy shrugged. Well, you ate my dinner. The Emperor reached into his robe and placed a small glowing coin on the table. This should cover it. Lucy looked at the coin. Even without knowing anything about alien money, she could tell it was extremely valuable. Her eyes widened. Okay, that definitely covers it. The Emperor sat down across from her. Lucy, he said gently. Do you know why I searched the galaxy for kindness? Lucy shook her head. Because power is easy to find, he said quietly that he looked toward the window where the fleet hovered over the city. Armies, weapons, empires, all of these can be built with fear. Then he looked back at her. But kindness, that is rare. Lucy didn't know what to say. The Emperor continued. Every world I visit shows me the same thing. Civilizations grow stronger, richer, and more advanced. He paused. But they slowly forget how to care for one another. Lucy thought about the crowded marketplace earlier. About all the people who walked past the hungry traveler. She looked down. Yeah, that sounds about right. The Emperor smiled gently. But tonight, you reminded me that hope still exists. Lucy felt embarrassed. I just bought someone food. You saw a stranger in need, the Emperor corrected. And you helped without expecting anything in return. The room fell quiet. Finally Lucy asked the question that had been sitting in her mind. So, why are all those warships here? The Emperor stood and walked toward the window. Thousands of lights from the fleet illuminated the clouds. Because tomorrow, he said calmly, I will make an announcement that will shock the entire galaxy. Lucy felt a strange sense of dread. What kind of announcement? The Emperor turned toward her. His glowing blue eyes looked both ancient and hopeful. I will announce that humanity, he paused, is ready to join the Galactic Imperium. Lucy's jaw dropped. What? The Emperor nodded. And you, Lucy? He pointed gently toward her. Will stand beside me when I do. Lucy's mind exploded with panic. Wait. But before she could finish, the sky outside suddenly filled with blinding red lights. Alarms erupted across the fleet. The officer rushed to the window. His voice turned sharp with urgency. Your Majesty. The Emperor's expression changed instantly. What is it? The officer looked at the scanners on his wrist. His face went pale. Unknown warships have entered orbit. Lucy blinked. Unknown. The officer turned slowly. They're not part of the Imperium. The Emperor's eyes narrowed. Identify them. The officer swallowed. It's the Croth Dominion. Even Lucy had heard that name before. The most feared war empire in the galaxy. And they had just arrived above Earth. Lucy whispered nervously. Please tell me they're friendly. The Emperor looked at the sky, his voice calm but serious. No. Outside the window, thousands of enemy warships began appearing in the darkness. And Lucy realized something terrifying. Her simple act of kindness had just pulled Earth into the center of a galactic war. The red warning lights outside Lucy's window painted the clouds like fire. Massive shapes appeared in orbit above Earth. Dark warships sliding out of hyperspace one after another. They were larger than the Imperial fleet, jagged and brutal in design. Their hulls covered in crimson symbols that glowed like burning scars. Lucy felt her stomach tighten. So those are the Croth? She asked quietly. The Imperial officer nodded grimly. Yes. The Emperor stood near the window, watching the enemy ships gather above the planet. His calm expression did not change, but the room felt heavier somehow, like the weight of history had suddenly dropped into Lucy's small apartment. Lucy swallowed. And they're bad. The officer gave a short laugh without humor. The Croth Dominion has conquered more than 200 civilizations. Lucy blinked. Conquered how? The officer looked directly at her. They erase worlds that refuse to kneel. Lucy felt her legs weaken. Oh. Outside, the sky flashed as more enemy ships arrived. Their engines lit the clouds in violent red waves. Lucy turned to the Emperor. Did they come because of you? The Emperor nodded slowly. Yes. Lucy sighed. Of course they did. He looked at her with quiet apology. The Croth have watched the Imperium for centuries. They believe the moment I grow weak, they can destroy us and rule the galaxy. Lucy crossed her arms nervously. And they think Earth is your weak point? The officer answered this time. They detected our fleet gathering here. To them, it looks like we are claiming this planet. Lucy muttered under her breath. Great. I buy dinner for one alien and now Earth is a battlefield. But the Emperor suddenly smiled. Not yet. Lucy looked up. What do you mean? He turned toward the officer. Open a communication channel. The officer tapped his wrist device. A glowing holographic screen appeared in the air. On it appeared the face of a terrifying alien warlord. His skin was dark red and armored like stone. Sharp horns curved from his skull, and his glowing yellow eyes burned with cold intelligence. The Croth commander. His voice boomed through the apartment. Emperor. The Emperor stood calmly. Warlord. Lucy whispered to herself. This is insane. The Croth warlord leaned forward slightly. You hide among primitive humans now? The Emperor's voice remained steady. I am visiting. The warlord laughed harshly. Then your visit ends tonight. The hologram expanded, showing thousands of Croth ships surrounding Earth like a cage. Your fleet is outnumbered, the warlord continued. Surrender the planet, and perhaps I will allow these humans to survive as slaves. Lucy's eyes widened. Excuse me. The officer clenched his fists in anger. But the Emperor remained calm. No. The warlord tilted his head. You would start a war for them? The Emperor replied without hesitation. Yes. Lucy stared at him. You don't even know us. The Emperor looked at her gently. I know enough. The Croth warlord studied him for a moment. Then his eyes moved toward Lucy. Ah, he said slowly. So this is the human. Lucy pointed at herself. Me. The warlord smiled cruelly. Our spies told us everything. Lucy groaned. Fantastic. The warlord continued. The Emperor searches for kindness across the stars. A foolish mission. Lucy crossed her arms. Hey. But the warlord ignored her. If a single human act of kindness can move the Imperium, he said slowly, then humanity must be destroyed before it spreads. Lucy froze. Wait, what? The Emperor's eyes narrowed. You would slaughter an entire species because of compassion? The warlord's voice became cold. Compassion is weakness. Lucy suddenly stepped forward. Okay, hold on. Everyone looked at her. The officer whispered urgently, Lucy, please. But Lucy ignored him. She walked closer to the hologram. Let me get this straight, she said. The warlord stared down at the small human. You believe kindness makes civilizations weak, Lucy said. Yes. And that helping someone makes them dangerous? Yes. Lucy rubbed her face in disbelief. That is the dumbest thing I have ever heard. The officer nearly fainted. The warlord's eyes burned with anger. You dare. Lucy interrupted him. Look, giant space warlord guy. I didn't help the emperor because he's powerful. I helped him because he looked hungry. The warlord growled. That is irrelevant. Lucy shook her head. No. That's exactly the point. She looked directly into his glowing eyes. Your empire rules with fear, right? Yes. Lucy shrugged. Then people obey you because they're scared. The warlord remained silent. But kindness. Lucy continued. Kindness makes people stand with you because they want to. The emperor watched her with quiet pride. Lucy pointed toward the Croft fleet visible in the sky. You might win battles with fear, but you'll never build something people truly believe in. The warlord's voice turned deadly. You speak boldly for a fragile species. Lucy smiled slightly. Maybe. Then she added one last sentence. But at least we're not afraid to help someone who's hungry. The room fell silent. For several long seconds the Croft warlord simply stared at her. Then he slowly leaned back. Interesting. He turned to his fleet commanders off-screen. This species may become a problem in the future. Lucy groaned. Oh, come on. The warlord looked back at the emperor. This war will come eventually. Then his eyes flicked toward Lucy again. But tonight, I will allow your experiment to continue. Lucy blinked. Wait, really? The warlord's expression remained cold. Because I want to see what happens when kindness meets the cruelty of the galaxy. The hologram flickered. Enjoy your moment, Emperor. And then the screen vanished. Outside the window, the red enemy ships began jumping into hyperspace one by one until the sky finally went dark again. Lucy collapsed onto the couch. I think I need water. The officer exhaled in relief. The Croft rarely retreat. The Emperor turned to Lucy with a warm smile. You did well. Lucy laughed nervously. I insulted a galactic warlord. Yes, the Emperor said. And it worked. Lucy stared at him. So what happens now? The Emperor walked toward the window and gestured to the enormous Imperial fleet above Earth. Tomorrow, he said calmly, I will make my announcement. Lucy groaned. Please tell me I'm not part of it. The Emperor looked at her kindly. You are the reason for it. Lucy buried her face in her hands. Oh no. The Emperor placed a hand gently on her shoulder. Lucy of Earth, he said. Tonight you proved something the galaxy had forgotten. Lucy looked up. What? The Emperor smiled. That even the smallest act of kindness can change the fate of empires. And above them, the Imperial fleet began lighting the sky in brilliant gold. Not as an army preparing for war, but as a civilization preparing to welcome humanity into the stars.